All right, good evening, everybody. We're ready to get started. This is the joint meeting of the City Council, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, Public Finance Authority, Public Utility Authority, Housing Authority, Paris Joint Powers Authority, and Paris Community Economic Development Corporation of the City of Paris. This meeting is being called to order on April 26, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rabb,
Here.
Councilmember Rogers,
Here.
Councilmember Nava,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Corona,
Present.
Mayor Vargas.
Here. Thank you. And just for everyone's information, Councilwoman Rogers and Councilman Rabb will be joining us via Zoom. And for those of you on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the participants button on the bottom of your screen. A list of participants will appear on the right side of the screen. At the bottom of this list, please click on the gray raised hand button. This will signal to the host that you would like to provide public comment, and you will be added to the list. If you are using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, and your screen will pop up with the list of participants. Look for the raised hand button on the screen. And for those who are calling in using a traditional phone line, simply dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. Okay, item 3 is our invocation, which will be led by Reverend Sherry Meteor from the First Congregational Church. So please stand for the invocation and remain standing for item 4, which is our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilman Rabb.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. If you might just indulge me a half a moment to remind you about the invitation following up on First Congregational Church of Paris will be celebrating 135 years of ministry here in Paris. Yes, we're older than the city. And so you are all invited, as are all our neighbors in Paris. Worship starts at 10 a.m. At 11:30, we'll continue the celebration with food and fun. So people are invited to all parts of that. Thank you. Let us set our spirits now in the spirit of prayer. Gracious God, we ask your blessing upon all those gathered here this evening, both here in the City Council chambers and in all the places people are participating and attending this meeting. We specifically ask you to guide and bless Mayor Vargas, Council Members Rabb, Rogers, Nava, and Corona. Give them your vision to see the residents of this wonderful city of Paris as you see them. Fill their hearts with your compassion, and may their words and decisions reflect your care for all people. We ask that they lean not onto their own understanding, but on you, O God, as they discern the best course for the workers in the city of Paris. We ask that you comfort and protect those charged with our protection and safety, law enforcement officers, firefighters, animal control officers, and all who work in the various departments and provide services throughout our city. Move us, O God, to build your kingdom here, that all may know your grace and unfailing love. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me as we salute our nation's flag. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, item 5 is a report on closed session items. Mr. Dunn?
Thank you, Mayor. The council met in closed session to discuss the 2 items noted on the agenda, and no reportable action was taken tonight.
Thank you. Item 6 is presentation announcements. 6A is a presentation declaring May 2022 as Building and Safety Month. This item will be presented by our Building and Safety Manager, Veronica Arana.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to introduce Mr. R.V. Dagatan, Management Analyst for Development Services, who will be presenting this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff, management, and everyone in the community. On behalf of the Building and Safety Division, it is my pleasure to present to you this year's Building and Safety Month held annually in the month of May. The Building and Safety Month is a global campaign of awareness hosted by the International Code Council, or ICC. ICC is the leading source of building safety standards adopted internationally, as well as locally here in the city of Paris. The campaign impacts about 2 billion people worldwide, and it reaches families and individuals on a personal level by setting structural standards that affect both environmental and living conditions. But you're probably asking, how does this really affect me? Let me answer you with a fun fact. According to the US Environmental Agency, Americans on average spend about 90% of our time inside a man-made structure. Whether it be at home, in school, or at work, we somehow find ourselves inside the facility. Hence the importance of having and enforcing building codes that ultimately ensure our safety. This year, the Building and Safety Month will touch on these topics: energy innovation, building and safety careers, disaster preparedness and mitigation, and water safety. But what I wanted to put a focus on is disaster preparedness, or safety beyond buildings. Although often overlooked, safety also entails preparing for both natural and man-made disasters. From extreme heat, snowstorms, even hurricanes, each type of disaster requires a different kind of response and preparation. But how can we prepare right now, you may ask? Well, I do have a few suggestions. First, spread awareness, research, share what you've learned. You know, preparedness has no age requirement. In fact, it is highly recommended that we keep both our children and the elderlies aware and informed about how we deal with these types of situations. Next, promote better living standards. It is also always good practice to keep an eye out for anything and everything that might be hazardous in our community. From potholes to faulty power poles, if you see something, just say something. And lastly, join the cause. From May 23rd to the 27th, in observance of this campaign, the Building and Safety Division will be distributing informational packets, tools, and supplies in a continuing effort to raise awareness. With that said, I, along with my colleagues, are inviting you to stop by and say hi. Join us in commemorating this event on the 3rd week of May. To close, staff will be distributing informational packets to the council members. And lastly, I'd like to thank the mayor, city council, management, staff, and the members of our community for having me here today and giving me the opportunity to share this important message. We hope to see you all next month.
Thank you, Harvey. It was a great presentation. Council, anybody have any comments? Okay, we have none in the queue. Thanks again, Harvey. I'm prepared now. Okay, moving on. Item 8 is our public comments. This is the time when any member of the city and the public can make a comment on anything that is not listed on our agenda. We will allow for 3 minutes. Oh, I sure did skip. My bad. Item 7 is our Youth Advisory Committee communications. This report will be given by Savannah Herrera, President of the Youth Advisory Committee.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and city staff. Good afternoon. I am honored to be YAC's President, Savannah Herrera. Today, I will be providing an update on YAC's latest and upcoming events. First off, YAC learned quite a bit during a policy workshop on Thursday, April 14th. During this workshop, we had the opportunity to study and have input in healthy options at Checkout campaign. We are excited to learn more about this campaign. YAC also participated in yoga in the garden on Monday, April 18th. Yoga was a perfect exercise to relieve stress as the end of the school year approaches. Additionally, on Saturday, April 13th, we had an additional booth at the health fair. This was a perfect opportunity to notify the community that YEC applications can be found at thecityofparis.org and are due July 29th, 2022. Moving forward, our next park cleanup will occur on Saturday, April 30th at 8 a.m. at the developing Enchanted Hills Park. This is a great occasion to learn community service and earn those hours and make a positive impact in our community. Apart from the updates, YEC would like to provide more information on Distracted Driving Month. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 48% of teen death is caused by unintentional injury, and 78% of those are motor vehicle traffic accidents. It is extremely important to fully focus on the road while driving, as the consequences are devastating. Finally, YEC would like to remind everyone to please follow us on social media at Paris YEC for more updates and upcoming events. For more information on YEC or any events discussed today, feel free to dial the Statler Youth Center. YEC would like to remind everyone to remain healthy and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah. Okay, moving on to item 8 now, public comments. Again, this is the time when any member of the public can speak on anything that is not on our agenda, and we will allow 3 minutes for speaking. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, sir. Pastor Abraham Capers Jr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Three things really I would like to bring to your attention. The trash. We've been getting a trash bill for one of my addresses ever since y'all turned it over to CR&R. And all they do is just, play a game, say we're gonna go out and check. We're going on vacation, or we're tired of these bills. Somebody's stealing. That's what they're doing. Because old people, they have a tendency to get stressed out, they just pay it. Somebody down there stealing. So we need to do more than just look into it. Amen? The second thing is, we had a moratorium on apartments from Jarvis to Case Road, Redlands to A Street. And now that every time I turn around, they put in apartments. 5th Street, there's 2 apartments. And then there's another 2-story apartments on 7th Street. We understand that you got to build affordable housing, but you don't have to make a slum in one area. The third thing is the law is changing. People are working at home. And so these cars that start washing their cars, playing that loud music. Something has to be done. Amen? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
That is all.
IT, do we have anybody wishing to speak?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay, item 9 is our approval of minutes. 9A is consideration to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 12th, 2022, and the special meeting held on April 19th, 2022, of the City Council, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, and all the other entities as listed in our agenda. If there are no comments or questions from council, I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion from Councilwoman Nava. It's not working. Hit the agenda.
I will second.
Not working. And second by Mayor Pro Tem. Please call roll call vote.
That's working.
That part's working.
Councilmember Rabb?
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Nava?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Corona?
Yes.
Mayor Vargas?
Yes.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. Item 10 is our consent calendar. Consent calendar items are normally enacted in one motion. The mayor or city council may remove a consent calendar item for separate action. We will have public comment, but limited to 3 minutes. Council, does anybody have any comments or requests on the consent calendar?
Yes, Mayor, if I may pull item 10G. G is in golf.
Anybody else? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve all the items with the exception of G. Have
Make a
by-
motion.
I think Councilwoman Nava beat you, but we'll put you as a second.
Okay.
So first by Councilwoman Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call roll call vote.
Councilmember Rab,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Nava,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Corona, Mayor Vargas,
Yes,
5-0, motion approved.
thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Nava, item G.
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled this item for discussion. Before I jump to my questions, though, there is some information that I'd like to share regarding this item. So to be consistent with the general practice for auditor rotation, I encouraged city staff a few years ago to go out and request for new bids. At that time, the city utilized the audit services from the same firm for 20 consecutive years. Again, auditor rotation was not in effect, and it is encouraged to switch every 3 to 5 years. So since I raised that concern, then staff went ahead and solicited a different auditor firm, which was Pun Group, and they have served the city's auditing services for 3 years now. So now that leads me to my question. Will the city continue to rotate every 3 years moving forward?
To answer your question, Councilwoman Nava, yes. So the general practice, best practice is every 3 to 5 years. So the contract that we have laid forth was for a 3-year contract with 2 one-year additional if we want to proceed with them. In the case of the Pun Group, we didn't go forward with them. They were allowed to bid. They did bid, but they're not the number one selection. But yes, 3 to 5 years is what we'll do going forward.
Perfect. And is there a way to ensure that the city doesn't stick with the same auditor for so many years like it has in the past?
That's a great question. Yes, we want to make sure that we always rotate to a different one. So even though the Pun Group did bid, we would like to go with them, have a gap in between. So we want to ensure that we don't go back to back with them. So that would be preferred as well. So that was taken into consideration when we did do the grading of the consultants. So that was one of the reasons why they weren't chosen as well. But that's something we'd like to do going forward, is ensure they don't go back to back.
Okay, perfect. And I appreciate that gap. That's something that's really important to me.
Certainly.
So that moving forward, that's something that I like city staff to consider, to make sure that even though the auditors are worked out really well, that they don't remain
Yes.
in effect for a number of years.
Yes.
And could you share a little bit of information of how you landed on this particular auditor?
Yeah, certainly. So we have a criteria scoring that we used, and there's a whole slew of information that we use to pick these individuals, not just price, even though the Rogers Anderson Manley Group was the lowest of the amount. Other factors come into play, like locality, like where they're centralized. Pun Group was Orange County, so they were scored a little bit lower. This other group, Rams, as they're known, they're a local firm. Then Inland Empire, they're going to create better customer service because they're local. A lot of times you don't get that customer service if they're outside of this area, so that played a big part of it. And then just experience. We asked to have some of their financial statements included with their proposals, and I believe the other two didn't actually do that, so they lost points with that. So showing us who they actually service and whether or not they were actually able to help retrieve the goal of getting an award, the national award, which we always strive to receive. So that was done by Rams, and we felt like they followed the rules to the T, and they provided for everything that we wanted them to provide for us. So they had the most points based on the criteria we set forth, and we selected them as our auditors.
Okay, perfect. And I also really appreciate that the agenda listed which years were the ones that would be audited.
Certainly.
And then, so that's all the questions I have. Thank you so
No problem.
much.
Anybody else have any comments? Madam Clerk, I failed to ask you if we had any public requests to speak on the consent.
No, we don't, sir.
Okay. Okay, are you making the motion, Councilwoman Nava?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
It's not working. There it goes.
Oh, I didn't click.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Nava, second by Malcolm, Mayor Pro Tem. IT, can we raise my volume, please? I can't even hear myself. Can you guys hear me okay out there? Yeah. It's amazing. Up here, they said no, and up there, one guy said yes. And we need to raise my volume up, please. Tests.
Okay, Councilmember Rab,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Nava,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Corona,
Yes.
Mayor Vargas.
Yes.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. Okay, item 11 is public hearings. Is that better now back there? Can you guys hear me better? Item 11, public hearings. We will allow for public comment up to 3 minutes, but we have no public hearings. So we're going to move on to item 12, which is business items. 12A is our annual fire department. This will be introduced by our fire chief, Kirk Barnett.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and city staff. Tonight, I'd like to present the 2021 annual report for the fire department and give a brief description of some of the things that we do and some of the call increases and stuff that we have had. So the City of Paris cooperates with the Riverside County Fire Department and CAL FIRE in a joint contract for cooperative regional protection services in that area. Through that, the city is served by 2 fire stations that are funded by the City of Paris, Station 101 and Station 90. And they also get the state station across the street, Station 1, where what is currently 101 used to be housed and called Engine 1 prior to its completion about 10 years ago when that fire station was built. In this picture is Quint 90, which is the original first fire station that was built in the City of Paris with those funds, and on it is the ladder truck. This is something that the City of Paris is funding for a new ladder truck and was approved in this fiscal year. It will be coming before you soon to extend that into the next fiscal year as the order due to COVID and several other setbacks have basically prevented that from being placed, and we're still trying to get an updated bid and award the contract so that we can move forward with that. So that'll be asked to be moved into the next 22-23 budget year. This is Station 1, where most of the time there's two state fire engines available to the City of Paris and all the surrounding areas. This past year, the department chose to shut that station down for about 3 months, which transitioned some of those calls back to Engine 101, already taking a busy station and increasing its call volume where normally we had received that benefit year-round. So what we do is all risk. If there's an emergency, we go to it. It doesn't matter what type or scenario. We'll go to any flooding calls, fires, public service assistance, vehicle accidents, any medical emergency, and as the mayor's favorite, some of the veterans memorials and stuff to help support those. So our significant incidents that are normally produced with additional documentation to the mayor, they include structure fires or to the city manager, who then forwards them to the mayor and the city council. Structure fires, wildland fires, traffic collisions, and water rescues. Those are the predominant ones you see. Occasionally you'll see some hazardous materials incidents just due to the nature of those, even if they're small. For 2021, we had a 2.67 increase in our calls, and these are calls that are specific to the City of Paris's jurisdiction. So In 2020, we had 7,847 calls within the jurisdiction. In 2021, 8,054. As you can tell, each year we have an increase in calls, which is kind of coincides with the growth of the city. So each unit is responding to about 11 separate incidents a day. Now that does not count any of the what we call multiple response calls, where both units from both stations or 5 or 6 stations are all going to the same response, and those add into the overall call volume. But for incidents specifically, it's at 8,054. As you can tell, for the majority of our calls are all medical emergencies, with 5,926 of those calls to be the bulk of the call volume. Commercial fires are 9, false alarms at 529, and those can be a variety of call types, from anything during the summer of fields being plowed and the dust that it creates being called in, and that being an investigation and a smoke check, to a smoke alarm at a house. So you have a wide variety of what those false alarms are. Then our hazardous materials incidents at 13. Once again, our medical emergencies, which is our primary business, is 5,926. That's where you see most of our increases, even yearly. It comes out of that category. Multifamily dwelling fires, we had 1. Other fires and miscellaneous, other fires at 127. Miscellaneous calls at 255. Public services at 146. Residential fires at 37. Rescues at 8. Ringing alarms at 29. Traffic collision or standbys at 77. Traffic collisions at 759. Vehicle fires at 48, and wildland fires at 90. A large portion of those wildland fires are the incidents that occur like at 4th and Navajo, 11th and Park. Those have a high tendency to be caused by individuals in a state of homelessness in the city. That tends to be a pretty problematic area. So on the Code 3 calls, because we respond Code 2 and Code 3, and the difference between those components is Code 2 is without lights and sirens, and Code 3 is with lights and sirens. So in the Code 3 category, 65.3% of those calls were there in less than 5 minutes. Over 5 minutes, there's 2,000 out of the 3,966 calls, 2,111 are over 5 minutes. The plus 10 minutes is 203. The plus 20 minutes is 29. For the average call time is 4.9 minutes. Now, when you look at the plus 10 and the plus 20, a lot of those are added circumstances of possible waiting for law enforcement for clearing of those, because they're staged calls. They still come through as an emergency call in a Code 3, but they have to be cleared by the police before we'll enter. So some of those are extended, and so is some of the location types where basically it's an extended ETA where they, for lack of a better term, have a hard access point. A good example is off A Street, just in those open fields, and trying to gain access to those areas. So our commitment is to the public safety and to the greater good of Paris and the surrounding areas. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do have one quick question, Chief. After so many false alarms, is there a built-in fee that you charge the resident or business?
No, sir. There's
Okay.
been some surrounding areas that have added those in. In the commercial environment, there's been some benefit. Overall, from what was once a huge problem with the alarm systems in a lot of the businesses, currently that They've done much better with the installation and the upkeep of those alarms. And then at the same time, my personal thought as the fire department is I would rather investigate and inspect and check it out, especially when it comes to a residential alarm or any of those other things, and maybe find something when it's small or something that is very easily minimized than waiting and penalizing somebody because they were having an alarm malfunction. It does add to the system, but we can deal with those on the one-offs.
Got it. Council, anybody have any questions? You did a great job, Chief.
Thank you
No
very
questions.
much.
Thank you very much. Update. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay, 12B is consideration to receive and file the presentation of the RAVE mobile alerting system. This will be introduced by our Chief Information Officer, Arturo Cervantes.
Good evening, council members and staff. For this item, I have Mr. Paul Lopez, our IT supervisor, present it.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the city staff. I'm here to present Rave Mobile Safety alerting system for city residents to be informed on emergencies, road closures, and any city events that the city provides. I actually have Anthony Johnson with Rave Mobile Safety on Zoom to do a quick overview of the system.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Johnson. I'm an account executive for Rave Mobile Safety, who covers Southern California. So just to give you all a quick introduction to Rave and who we are, if you have not heard the recent news, Rave Mobile Safety was selected by Cal OES to provide next-gen 911 alert warning system. So in essence, iPause notifications, emergency notifications to all city, county agencies in the state of California. So any city or county now has the ability to move over to Rave Mobile Safety to utilize our platform for emergency notifications to their residents at no cost. That contract is managed by Atos, and it's through Cal OES. So Rave is the vendor. Just to give you a quick introduction to who we are, we have been in business now almost 17 years in the public space. We deal with cities and counties of all sizes, counties ranging, 1,000 population all the way up to
All right,
If
looks like we lost them.
If it's all right, Mr. Lopez and Mayor and members of council, I'll pinch hit. Anthony has slightly spotty reception. He's actually at the Cal Sheriff's Conference in Visalia. So actually, while I pull up my screen, if you'll indulge me, if I could just introduce our partner or one of our partners with Cal OES, Paul Troxel with the State 911 Office. Paul, if you wouldn't mind maybe just giving an overview of how this came to be, and then I'll go back to the screen share and I can finish for Anthony.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Noah.
So-
good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity this evening. My name is Paul Troxel. I'm with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services in the 911 branch. And as we started to initiate next generation 911 deployment in the state, we realized there was one missing component. We do a great job of getting calls into our dispatch center, notifying of any emergency. However, there's no common platform in the state of California to notify residents of that emergency. So in our next generation 911 contract, we included an alert warning solution, and Atos, who is your prime network service provider for the state of California, selected Rave Mobile Safety as their partner to deliver this service. So I'd like to turn it over to Noah and his team to be able to finish explaining exactly what service that Rave will provide. And if there's any additional questions or comments, we'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you.
Very, Good. Thank you, Paul, for the background. Are you all seeing the title slide again or no?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, so as Anthony was describing, Rave Mobile Safety as an entity has been around for quite a long time. We serve thousands upon thousands of state and local governments, institutes of higher education, corporations, healthcare organizations, and the like, with technology solutions that help enhance community, employee, student, staff safety. So as a partner of Atos and Cal OES, that's exactly what we've been asked to do for all cities, counties, publicly funded institutes of higher education, tribes, and actually, I think that's it, under this umbrella. Anthony has actually been engaged with your city IT leadership, who was pursuing a tool that would deliver timely and critical communications, both to your public and to members of your staff during times where, again, there's a need to communicate something, a matter of urgency. You all, if you decide to move forward through Cal OES's offer and partner for the next generation 911 and alert and warning system, you'll actually be the beneficiary because something that would have incurred cost and expenditure to the city will now be covered by Cal OES. So what we have to offer is a fully functional mass notification, or what's known as emergency notification system, and internal critical communications tool. This is a web-based platform, very easy to use, which is why I believe, again, that your IT leadership was pursuing a partnership with our organization prior to becoming aware of the opportunity through Cal OES and Atos. But again, very easy to use interface, can be used from any internet connected device to send urgent and timely communications, again, either to your public or to members of city staff via SMS text, email, voice calling when necessary. It connects to social media accounts. So really a powerful tool that expands the ability of city emergency officials to communicate things of a time-sensitive nature to your public, and certainly enhance internal operations as well. It's a feature-rich solution, multiple languages that these messages can be translated into, extremely robust performance from a throughput perspective. Again, we're powering some of the largest cities, counties, universities across the country with this tool. So an excellent way to enhance the city's posture towards providing for a safe environment for both your residents and visitors, as well as commuters. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. Certainly there's been, I think, a deeper technical evaluation from members of your IT staff. But again, we're available to you, as is Cal OES.
Were the other slides of any value to this presentation?
They were mostly background. I was trying to get through a little more quickly since we had a little technical difficulty. Okay. Mr. Lopez does have access to these slides, and I'm sure we'll be happy to share them with you.
Council, does anybody have any questions at this time?
Thank you.
Okay, hold on there. I was looking to see if, come back up to the, I have to check my counsel first. This is a freebie by the state.
Correct.
Which we like that already. But who's going to, can you guys hear me all right? I'm not hearing myself at all. I mean, I'm like right up on the microphone now. Jeez. Yeah, but I should have to have it on my mouth. So I don't know who I'm going to direct these questions to, but who will be overseeing the app in reference to issues in Paris?
The City of Paris's IT department will.
Okay. And at any time will Cal OSHA or whichever agency that was come in with a statewide emergency?
We would have to partner with, and no, you might be able to talk a little bit more about this, to do IPAWS, which is like the Amber Alerts. We would have to petition for that portion of it. This would be more for internal city functions, road closures, city events, things like that.
Well, I think Amber Alerts, we're pretty much already in that built in on the phone system. So, all right, so that's great. So this will all be managed by our staff and paid for from the state.
Correct.
Got to give prompts to Governor Newsom on that one. I can't think of the last time the state. I don't want to say that. Very good. All right. Since there's no other questions, Madam Clerk, do we have any requests from the public?
No, sir.
IT?
No, sir.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So are we looking for a vote or just some consensus if we want to move forward with this product? I mean, I would think we want to move forward with this. Council? Yes?
Definitely,
Yes.
of course.
Sounds good to me.
So let's move forward with this and bring it. You have to bring it back with the contract. No? Well, great.
Oh, can we propose maybe steps to how to download the app and how to utilize it, a future presentation?
Well, they'll probably obviously do some PSAs too on the Paris TV.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to answer
as
that
a-
question. Oh, that sounds like an echo. To answer that question, we're planning to do a social media outreach, do some PSAs, and just to promote it and also work with Public Works. So,
Great. Paul or Anthony or Noah, did you guys have any final comments before I close this?
No, I was just gonna, are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I was just going to say, as a point of clarification on the app, there is a free resident-facing app that your citizens would be able to download that would allow them to opt in for the resident notifications. The actual solution that Paul's team will be utilizing to send out notifications, that will all be web-based. So you won't actually be using an app to send out notifications. So I just wanted to add that as a point of clarification.
All right, got it. Thank you. Okay, so move forward. 10C is consideration and discussion regarding cannabis taxes, penalties, and application fees. This will be introduced by Director of Development Services, Kenneth Fung.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Just for a brief background, at the March 24th, 22 Ways and Means Committee meeting, Joshua Nagar, representing several of the dispensaries in the City of Paris, presented a request before the committee. As part of that discussion, they made 3 requests for the committee to consider to bring forth before the whole council. The 3 requests consist of, first, the reduction of the dispensary tax from 10% to 5%, or an option to allow the dispensary to take deductions for payroll and cost of goods. The second request was to reduce the penalties for underpayment or late payment of taxes to be more in line with a traditional business. And the third item is to consolidate the medical, adult, and a lounge application to under one fee application with a renewal. As a result of those discussions, the council directed staff to do additional research and bring this item before the whole council. Just for a background behind the cannabis tax, in 2018, when we started allowing cannabis operators, we did a brief survey of cities that allow cannabis taxes. And this survey here shows 2018 taxes and then 22 taxes. As you can see in this survey, all of the cities have either kept their taxes the same, or in one case, San Diego has actually increased their taxes from 5% to 8%. Just for a note, the city has updated its tax adjust rate for cannabis. It's based on what we call adjusted growth. Back in 2019, the City Council adopted Resolution 5448, which allows deductions for state and excise tax, which effectively have a effective growth rate of 7.75%. And our deputy city manager will elaborate on that later when we go through some scenarios for different tax rate options. As part of the survey, we just wanted to kind of highlight cities that are higher than Paris and cities that are lower than Paris. And as you can see in this survey right here, there's several cities at least 9 cities that have a higher tax rate than Paris, anywhere between 8 to 15%. The next survey is just cities with lower tax rate than Paris, and it kind of varies between 4% gross receipt for Hesperia, but which only allows deliveries, or the County of Riverside, which is based on a development agreement, which is substantially lower than a percentage rate. Next, I'm going to pass this over to the Deputy City Manager, who will go through different scenarios for the Council's information purposes.
Thank you, Kenneth. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. So I'm going to have some situational examples here because I think it's helpful to see visually what this all means on paper using numbers that we currently have already that we received from the first quarter of what we'll call Dispensary XYZ. So in this example, what you can see here on the left is our current structure, what we have. The 10% tax current rate you can see there. So what we do is we start off with that gross receipts. In this example that we have here, we collected about $2.5 million that was turned over to us. And then you'll see the next 2 line items, the sales and use tax and the excise tax, which are both for the state, not for us. We allow those exemptions, so that's being reduced effectively. So what we do is before we take that 10% off, we allow for those deductions at 10%. So you come down to that adjusted gross revenue, you have about $1.9 million. And so effectively what you do is you take 10% of that. And so using that, that's where we're coming up with, even though it's 10%, we're only receiving about 7 3/4 of that. So 7 3/4 is the effective tax rate in effect right now. And so because this is a quarterly basis, what we're collecting for this particular example is approximately $196,000, you can see there. So on a monthly basis, we get about $65,000 from this particular dispensary. Excuse me. So using 5% as the example next, if we were to reduce that down, same examples apply on the top, same amount of gross revenue. We're still allowing for the deduction of sales and use tax and excise tax. So as you can see, the adjusted gross revenue is the same. The only difference in this example would be the reduction from a 10% down to a 5%. So of course, what this does is cut the gross revenues, or sorry, net revenues down in half, effectively 50%. So when you go from a 5% after applying the sales and use tax and excise tax, the effective tax rate the city receives is a little bit less than 4%. So you can see that 3.89 effective tax rate. So in this example, we get about $98,000 on a quarterly basis, and then on a monthly basis, it's about $32,500. So again, this is a 50% reduction in revenues under a 5% tax rate. And again, using the current structure we have now as a basis of what this would look like. Go forward. Here's our scenario 2. Same example, same dispensary with the same gross revenues. Using the 10% tax rate again on the left as an example, so you can see exactly what we're doing. This time we cut it down to a 7% tax rate. And so using that effective amount and applying that 7%, we come down to a net quarterly amount of approximately $137,000. With that 7% tax rate and the application of that sales and use tax and excise tax, we have an effective tax rate that comes back to the city of about 5.5%. And so the monthly amount to the city would be approximately $45,700. So under this example, if we were to reduce down to a 7% tax rate, we'd have about 30% less in revenues than we would if we used a 10% tax rate. Next slide. So this one here compares the 10% to a 4%. And we use 4% because initially that was kind of what we thought the ask would be in that range of 4%. So this is a good one to look at because this is kind of like what the applicant proposed initially. And so we wanted to show you this one as well. So again, same criteria. On the left, you see what we currently have. On the right is a 4% tax structure. Coming down to the same adjusted gross revenue, we then apply the 4% tax rate. And so what we get on a quarterly basis is about $7,000 to $8,000. Our effective tax rate is just slightly above 3% using a 4% tax rate. And so what we get is about $26,000 a month. And with the 4% tax rate, we lose about 60% reduction in revenues on a quarterly basis. And we have one more we'd like to show. Next slide. Oh, is it not there?
I'm sorry.
It didn't make it in, huh?
Sorry, for some reason it didn't make it in there.
Okay,
Sorry,
that's okay.
apologies.
I have one more scenario. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into the slides here. This one we're calling scenario 4. And on this basis, we had discussed the possibility of allowing a deduction for both what we call cost of goods sold or their inventory, as well as payroll. And so in this example, what we do is we still take the same amount of gross revenues. And instead of allowing for the sales and use tax and the excise tax, we allow then for an inventory and payroll deduction. So that inventory was calculated at about 55% of gross revenues. And then the payroll was calculated at about 11% of gross revenues. So when you deduct those amount, you come out to a different adjusted gross amount. and then you apply the 10%. And so what they come up with is about $85,000 in quarterly revenue to the city. And the effective tax rate on this one is 3.4%, because we have allowed for the deduction of the inventory and payroll. This now comes down to about 3.4, very similar to the 4%, but this allows for a deduction using inventory and payroll. And so what this does is give us about $28,000 a month, and it's a reduction of about 56% from our original amount that we had before. So that was one of the options before, is that we allow for a flat percentage to be deducted, or we allow for the deduction of what we call inventory, cost of goods sold, or payroll. And that's calculated by the dispensaries and then turned into us. We accept that as it is, and then on the audit side, they get figured out on the back end. So that was one of the options, but it's very equivalent to what's 4% now. So I believe the ask is going to be somewhere between 3.4 to 4%, and that's what we're looking at now. So what staff done is we prepared 4 different examples using different percentages. We could stay at 10%, the 7%, the 5, and then the 4, and effectively the 3.4. So there's another example there. So there's various amounts that you could use going forward from there. So I'm going to pause there because I know there's a lot of information. Unfortunately, this slide didn't make it in. But if there's any questions as it applies to the reduction of the tax rates or any of that, I'll stop here and see if you have any questions.
Yes.
Council, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
For the payroll deduction, were you able to separate those between the payroll deduction and the inventory deduction?
So in the amounts, what the dispensary information that they given me, because it's kind of industry standard, and so what they indicated is that 55% of your gross revenue is equivalent to your inventory or your cost of goods sold. So whatever your gross receipts was, if you apply 55% of that, that is essentially your inventory amount. And so on the payroll side, industry standard more or less is 11%. So you would take your gross receipts, multiply that by 11%, and go forward with that. So when you add those two together, 66% is being reduced from the gross revenue. So you're left with essentially 34% of what was remaining. And then you apply the 10% tax, and that's what they come back to. So
Okay.
if that makes sense?
Yeah. Now, for the inventory and the payroll, do they go together, or can we separate those?
They can be separated. That was the ask.
Okay, so
they-
11.
they-
So they brought that up. Okay.
They can be identified separately and mix and matched, both going together. One comes out, whatever the case may be, but they can be identified.
Okay. Now for the payroll deduction, are there any industry or any type of market in our city or anything like that does not get a labor deduction or payroll deduction?
I'm not. I don't believe so. No.
Council member,
yeah.
I'm sorry. We have an option. I was planning to go through some of these items. If you want me to continue, or we can ask questions.
Oh yeah. You know, I'll say more of my questions at the end. But I just kind of had questions on the slide thing.
Sure.
Thank you though.
So I think that's gonna. I'm gonna turn it back over to Ken, that he can finish the slides.
Yeah, for this particular item, I want to just highlight some tax rate findings. So just as a reminder, no cities that were previously surveyed in 2018 have lowered their tax rate except for us. 9 of the 16 city surveys have a higher tax rate than Paris. 7 of the 16 cities have a lower tax rate, and they tend to be the newer cities. Just as your question you mentioned, no jurisdiction, to our knowledge, has allowed deduction for dispensaries for payroll and cost of goods, at least to our knowledge. And I want to highlight 2 of the scenarios that the Deputy City Manager mentioned. A reduction from 10% to 4% would equate to a reduction from our tax intake from 5.7% to 5.7 million to 2.8 million based on the 2021 tax rate. And a reduction from 10% to 7% would equate to a reduction from 5.7 million to 4 million. Just wanted to highlight the 2 other topics. In terms of the penalty reduction requests, staff did conduct a survey. Approximately 16 of the cities that we survey, about 9 of them have very similar penalties to the city of Paris, about 25% and penalties. And a few of the cities, we could just, and they represent that we just couldn't gather the data before this meeting, but some do have a lower tax rate than us, the penalty rate. And this list kind of provides that information. So this kind of highlights our findings. We're comparable to at least 10 of the other cities, 10 of the other 17 cities. And the lowest penalty is the city of Lake Elsinore, which is 5% plus an 18% interest for the total of the year. The third item that the applicant requests is just consolidating the application fees and possibly lowering the fee. Based on our review, these are the city, including Paris, that have a separate fee application. As you can note in this chart, our city tends to be lower than the other cities. Some cities have financial audit that they do in-house. We don't recommend that. It takes a lot of energy and time and resources. The second survey is cities that have a combined application for adult, medical, and lounge. But as you can see in the survey, a lot of cities don't allow lounge at this point. But the cities that do allow the combined application still tend to be higher than the city of Paris for our internal review. I do just want to highlight some of the cities that have significantly higher fees than us. The city of Lake Elsinore requires an application fee of pretty much $24,000. The city of Moreno Valley charges an application fee of $89,000. And so there's some, and part of that is there's a community benefit that they charge when they renew per year. So just in brief, this is our findings on the application. Our application fees, although they're $13,000, $11,000 is pretty much towards HDL. $1,500 per application is staff review time. So in summary, it's significantly lower than most of the jurisdiction. And just for your informational purposes, we did consult with HDL, and historically what we've done is when they renew the application, we determined that the compliance audit and financial audit can be combined, so we kind of consolidated that with the renewal application. We also consulted with HDL just before the meeting, and they determined that at least after the initial review, it makes sense to consolidate that after the renewal application. And just for your information, you should have been forwarded an email by the applicant, Josh Nagar, representing the dispensaries, kind of updating his request from the initial Ways and Means Committee, where he asked for a tax rate of 5%. Now he's asking anywhere between 3.5% to 4%, but preferably 3.5%. He's asking for the consolidation of the medical, adult, and lounge permit under one review fee under the renewal, which we are in alignment with his requests. And the third item is to reduce the penalty fee from 25% to 10% with no further penalty. At this point, our preference is just to keep it the same, but the council can give us direction to reduce that fee if you wish to do so.
When was this issued? What time?
It was this morning. I forwarded to our city clerk. So,
Mayor, I believe everyone has a copy of the.
Well, I know we have a copy now, but I mean, I only get to check my email so many times a day, and I did not see this one, and that's why I was asking what time it came in.
Okay, it was probably around 10.
Didn't come into us. It went to the city clerk's office.
Yes.
Okay. To get something at the last hour does not help at all because we didn't have time to review this. So anyway, go on.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. In conclusion, staff is recommending the city council consider and provide direction to staff to, I'm going to just bullet point the three items, to potentially reduce the dispensary tax rate. The second is to potentially to reduce the current penalty fees to a lower rate. And the third is to, upon renewal of the application for medical, adult, and lounge application, to do it under one fee, which we are in alignment with the applicant to do that if the council concurs. That concludes my presentation. We're here to answer any questions. The applicant also has a presentation if you wish to hear that first, or you wish to ask us questions, and we'll respond.
Well, I also have some public comment to deal with too, so I'm going to open up public comment first. We're going to let the public comment if there's anybody who wants to speak on that. I will then allow the applicant. Where'd he go? Oh, then I'll allow the applicant to speak, and then at the end we'll have comments from council. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, sir. Joshua Nagar.
What, Josh? Aren't you representing everybody? You're going to do a present. Yeah, so we'll wait for that one. Next.
Stan Jakubich.
She was close.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. Thank you for having me tonight. First and foremost, I just want to let you know, you're all aware of the large project I have going in the south, multi-million-dollar project Dispensary. Is currently on hold right now, unfortunately, due to the taxation rates here in Paris. It's very tough for my investors to consider putting millions of dollars into something that simply across the freeway has such a lower tax rate, being Riverside unincorporated county. 75 plus jobs are on the line with this project down there. I want to get it complete. I want to bring the jobs to Paris. It's very tough to convince my investors to drop that type of money. Quick example, what I pay the city of Paris currently on the store that we have operating in 1 month, I would pay the county of Riverside, which is less than a half a mile away from my store, annually. So it's you can see where the tax reduction is almost a necessity. It's driving me to, after I pay my state sales tax, pay the city of Paris their tax at the end of the month. Come the first of the month, my landlord has been gracious enough to give me an extra 15 to 20 days, because without being able to delay on that, it's trying to keep inventory, staff, and the entire shop running. Taxation is killing us. The taxation of 10% is killing us. Riverside is a square footage tax as far as the unincorporated county, and less than a half mile from my existing store right now, there is a store that's going to be opening, and you can see where the competition is going to drive, not only the black market, but all of my customers over to Riverside County stores rather than Paris stores. So the way I see it is tax reduction here for the city of Paris, and we're able to benefit, both with the city and our stores here. So that's where I'm at, and thank you for hearing me. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Stan.
Shade Awad.
Hello, staff. Thank you for listening to us today. I think at the beginning when Paris allowed the sale, you guys were kind of like the pioneers of allowing it, and we said 10% was a fair number. And with that, we were saying 10%, we're going to have extra police presence, we're going to have extra fire presence, we need more facilities just in case if anything happens. So there's a lot of unknown that was going on in the industry. I think since that, you could check the police records. I don't think there's been 4 calls in the last 4 years for police. There hasn't been a fire call. The fire chief is right behind us. The services that we were being charged for we're not utilizing those services. That said, I think with the slides, the things that you have seen is the newer cities are realizing that, we are getting overcharged or overtaxed. Actually, our patients or our clients are getting overcharged. So the biggest thing that's changing the industry also is delivery. So somebody can deliver from down the street and deliver the same product to your house cheaper than a staff, rent, city tax, all that jurisdiction goes for. And that's kind of like what's killing the new industry, the new wave. So if you're at your house and you can order something and it comes to you cheaper, then you're going to go to your same city. You're not going to do you're not going to buy it online. You're just going to order it and it's going to come delivered to your house. Another thing is just the annual fees is just multiple fees. I think every city has some negative things that we don't like, and there's a lot of positive things that you do like. Moreno Valley is the highest one, $78,000. We do have a shop in Moreno Valley. One thing about Moreno Valley is $20,000 does go to community benefits. I know in Paris, we do our community benefits ourselves without the city having to tell us, whether we do, giving back to the schools, where we do the Thanksgiving dinner, where we do the $100,000 masks during the pandemic, whether we do the toys for the kids. Our city doesn't have to tell us how to give back, and I appreciate that. And another thing too, with that first quarter, that was my shop, you know what I mean? That I'm looking at as our family shop, and that was for 2021. But if you look at 2022, if you look at the decline in sales, it's been going down. And the reason it's been going down is more shops have been opening up. And the second thing is just more deliveries been more prominent, and it's been beating us. We're a simple phone call away. If we're doing something wrong, you guys call the shop managers, they fix that. If there's anything else that we can help with, we're more than accommodating to do. And, we're here to talk about, what benefit can we do just to be transparent and ask for a reduction, not just for us, for the community. When you say, you know, live in Paris, work in Paris, shop in Paris, you got to believe that shop in Paris should be cost less than it is right now. It's costing more. Thank you, guys.
That is all.
IT, do we have anybody on the internet?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time, please come on up, state your name.
Good evening. My name is Anna Jaquez, and I just want to say that I oppose, or I don't agree with any of the, some of the recommendations actually. So I'll just go point by point. So I don't agree with the first recommendation of the reduction of the dispensary taxes from 10 to 7.5%, 5%, whichever percentage that you're considering. And the reason being is that not a lot of the retailers out here in the city of Paris have actually received, you know, much help. Really, a lot of them didn't make it through the pandemic, and the dispensaries actually did, and they actually thrived. So I don't believe that we should be giving them leniency on this. And so, in addition, as a voter who voted yes for Proposition 64, it also stated on Ordinance 1330 that we were actually also in favor of the general municipal tax, which is the 10% or 10 cents per the dollar. So I think we should just leave it as is at the 10% rate. And second point was the reduction in the penalties. I think it's a great deterrent in making sure that our dispensaries come in and pay on time. So them seeing that 25% is a great way of making sure that they come in and pay. And third, the consideration to lower the application for one. That one, I think it's fine. I think it's okay if they have multiple, the adult, medicinal, and the lounge application. If it's all falls under one dispensary, yes, thank you, then I guess I'm okay with that as a city resident, you know, just charge them once, as long as it doesn't intervene with HDL's fees, which I read on here was $11,500. If the 13,000 covers that fee, then we're fine. But if HDL decides to up that charge, then I think we need to go ahead and keep them separated so we can make sure that we're not using our general funds or general revenues, our taxpayers' money on dispensaries. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Adrian Jaquez. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I've been living here in the city for about 10 years, and I love this city. I work as an engineer all different cities around this area.
Can you get closer to the microphone?
So I work as an engineer and work for other cities around this area. And they always ask me, where do you live all the time? And, I'm kind of hesitant sometimes, but I tell them, I live in Paris. And sometimes they tell me, isn't that the city where they have all those dispensaries? Yeah, it doesn't make me a pothead, but yeah, it is. So I think this dispensary just brings a black eye to the city, and I don't agree with it. I never liked it. I voted for it because I did see that how it could help, bring probably more cops, more firefighters in our city. So I did vote for yes on it, but I voted yes on 10%. I rather much give leniency to our mom and pop retailers, our restaurants. I'd rather see them thrive than these type of businesses. When I'd rather take my kids down the street and see markets, retail, stuff that I could bring my kids. This is a city where it's supposed to be family friendly, and I have to discuss with my kids. You see that green neon cross over there? That's not a hospital. It shouldn't have to be that way. And I want this city to thrive in a good way, not a bad way. And if they can't pay their taxes, I have to pay my taxes. I wish I could go to the state and local government or and say, you know what, I can't pay my taxes, can you cut them? I'd wish that would happen to me, but it's not going to happen. So I think the same should happen to them. I have to pay my bills, I have to pay my taxes, my interest, and that's the way I feel about this taxes. So, I mean, if they can't pay for this, then they can't stand the heat in the kitchen, then get out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we're going to close public comment. And I'm going to allow for the applicant to come up and speak to us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. What you're going to hear a lot tonight is excuses for unequal treatment. I've been saying it for months, maybe years, that this is the Jim Crow era of cannabis. You're going to hear every excuse in the book as to why our workers and businesses should be treated unequally. And it hurts. It hurts because I believe in liberty. I believe in America. And the recipe for liberty is equality. That is a well-known maxim in our country, that if we treat each other differently, then we don't have liberty. We're not free. So I want you to listen to that tonight. Listen for that. Listen to how many people have an excuse as to why you can treat a lawful business differently, why you can treat workers differently. And all it is Jim Crow speak. So this isn't coming out of a vacuum. This industry is in trouble. It's not growing well. I think the entire industry wrote a letter to the governor, I think last year, which the state has heard, and telling them that the whole industry is coming apart. Over 50 cents on the dollar is all tax and regulation. And what we saw is SB 1281 at the state level, they're reducing state taxes by 2/3. Recognizing that this whole industry is on the brink. So this is not about cannabis. This is about treating your neighbor and your countrymen equally. That's what this is about. So theoretically, cannabis is an official agricultural product in the state of California. The U of R has programs helping youngsters become a part of this industry once they come of age. MSJC is following. You would think it would be treated equally, but it's not. In gross tax jurisdictions, cannabis retailers are treated unequally. How are they treated unequally? No other retailer in America pays taxes on the collection of tax, yet retailers in this city did for 2 years. I think gratefully the city of Paris stopped that activity, but no one says anything about that. I see it in the presentation from staff as something you chose to do, but I don't think it's legal. I don't think having someone pay tax on the collection of tax they owe someone else is an ethical or lawful activity. Taxing labor. No other business in America does not get deductions for labor. No other labor is taxed like this. And I did some numbers crunching, and I'm going to blow your mind right now. There are 6,000 to 8,000 workers in Riverside County. Let's just say they all make minimum wage. That's $300 per worker on their labor that's being taxed by local governments. No deduction. That's $2.4 million a month. That's $30 million a year. Riverside County alone. That's $250 million in the state of California on taxed labor alone. I wish the Attorney General would hear me right now. Someone should do something about that. $250 million in workers' wages taxed by local government. That's unequal treatment under the law. Third thing, double tax and inventory. No retailer in America or the Western world does not get a deduction for the cost of their goods. Why? Because they paid taxes already to purchase the goods. It's just double taxation. It's just unequal treatment. It's just the same thing as an excuse for a Jim Crow law. Right? Back of the bus, can't use the water fountain. There is no excuse for unequal treatment in a free and equal society. And I haven't heard an excuse here tonight. I heard we voted. What did we vote for? Up to 10%? I don't think anybody voted to tax labor. I don't think anybody voted to treat anybody unequally. And anybody saying that should go read the measure, because it didn't say anything about treating people unequally in that measure. So are there any other retailers or workers in America treated this way? Well, let me definitively answer that. No, No other retailers in America are treated this way. No other workers are taxed by local governments at an estimated $250 million a year in the state of California. And if you're thinking it's like a vice tax, like cigarettes or alcohol, well, no liquor store or Stater Brothers is taxed at gross tax, so it's not treated like any other vice tax. I'm telling you quite plainly, cannabis business persons and their workers are treated unequally and differently. And I have not heard a good reason as to why here in a land of the free and equal, because no one stated it. Just like the Jim Crow era, they got away with it because they had police power, because they could just say, you have to go to the back of the bus. Your workers are going to get taxed. Well, I don't think that makes us any freer. I just think it's an exercise of executive power unethically. The good news is Paris has stopped taxing the collection of tax, and we're having this conversation today. The good news is SB 1281 is being fought for in a bipartisan way by many courageous leaders at the state right now that will reduce excise tax by 2/3. They're being bold to save this industry, 2/3. We're over here talking about 1%, 2%, 5%. They're going from 15% to 5%. And they're stopping this minimum mandatory markup. I don't know if anybody knows what that means, but in the state of California, retailers are told what they have to sell the good for. And if they don't, they still have to pay tax on the amount, a fictional amount that the governor just made up. They're trying to stop that in SB 1281 too, but that's the only industry I know of that happens as well. And it's happening in America. So I want to say it took courage for Paris to lead this industry. Paris had probably the majority of the retail licenses in the state of California when the regime went live. Paris still leads today. So when you look around you and you show graphs of other cities doing these things, it reminds me of the Jim Crow era when they used custom and culture as an argument. Well, you have to sit in the back of the bus in Birmingham. Well, you can't use the water fountain over to the other city next door. I'm not sure that means anything to me. That's just an excuse. You've led this industry. You have some of the older businesses in this industry, and you should be feeling growing pains before other people. So I think the fact that everyone around you is taxing labor, the fact that your state is taxing $250 million a year in labor, the fact that everyone around you is treating people unequally, well, that's the time you get to lead. That's the time you get to dig down deep and remember why you ran for office. Remember the oath you take to uphold the traditions of the United States of America, which include the equal treatment of similarly situated persons. That's the 14th Amendment. That's in your state constitution. That's most likely in your city charter as well. And I believe if you have a good excuse as to why some people are treated differently, great, let's hear it tonight. But if your only excuse is because we can, then I tell you, it's being done. People are being treated unequally. So I look forward to a conversation where we can start to treat cannabis retailers equally. And I put forth the 3 requests to staff. I think that would include a deduction for labor and inventory. I think that number is 3.5% to 4%, which is 65% that Mr. Reyna indicated. But if that's too difficult to discern, it's somewhere between 3.5% to 5%. Is kind of where the numbers lead. I think cannabis retailers should, we hope to use one application. I don't know if you guys know, but we pay separate application fees for each application. And it makes sense the first time around, but each year, what could HDL be looking at? It's probably different each year. So my position is if there's no changes to an application or a premises, why would it be the same every year? And finally, I think as far as the penalties, I think they're punitive. I don't think any other business, what person's late on their water bill, you take their house around here. But for cannabis, with the numbers you're dealing with, 25% plus 10% compounded interest, you practically take their business if there's accounting error. And I think it's punitive. The state of California judicial system lays down statutory interest for judgments that lapse. It's 10%. Shoot, Corona, which I didn't see Corona's data on there, I think it's 5 to 10% with no penalty. So I think you have to ask yourself, what is the point besides of a 25% penalty plus 10% compounded interest, other than to destroy a business? I mean, it has no deterrent effect. You get caught by that thing, you're going to blow up, you know? So I guess what we're asking for is equality and some leadership in that direction. Up to 10%, great. Tax away. Get what your fill is, but we don't understand what the inequality is about. We don't understand why we're the only business and industry treated this way. We don't understand why our workers' wages are taxed at 10%. When we want to give them a raise, we have to pay someone else. $250 million a year. That's a big number. If any of you know anybody at the state level, that's something you might want to share with someone. But at any rate, we're asking for that consideration, and we're grateful for this dialogue. But that's what we think this is about, equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nagar. Kenneth, can you put back the 3 questions?
IT, can you put this up in full screen mode?
Okay, Council. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor to the council members. Anybody have any comments? Councilwoman Rogers?
First, I'd just like to state for the record that the Jim Crow laws that lasted for over 100 years in our country was for racial segregation. It had nothing to do with the cannabis industry and the employees that worked in the cannabis industry. As an African-American female who marched and demonstrated for civil rights during that era, I find that comment to be highly offensive. And I really feel that you need to do a little bit more research into the Jim Crow laws. And at this time, I do not support a reduction in the dispensary tax rate or the penalty fees. If we can work out the renewal fees to be consolidated, I would support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem?
I do have some questions. I have some questions specifically on the labor tax. Are there any other industry? I think I was asking that before. Is there any other industry in our city that we tax on the labor, or not get a deduction on labor specifically?
So we don't typically tax in that manner for any other businesses. So it's not common that we would do that for anyone else. So I guess the answer would be no.
Okay. So do all other businesses get a labor deduction?
When it comes to doing their own taxes, either through the state and the feds, they'll get some sort of deduction in that manner. But generally, on the lower level, the city level, we wouldn't offer that type of a deduction for another industry. So it's kind of unique in that instance that really the cannabis industry is the only one that would do that.
Okay.
Could do that.
So it sounds like their labor deduction might have to be a conversation with the state?
Well, I think they do already get that deduction. So that's what they're saying.
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, just to clarify, this is the only business that's also taxed based on gross receipts. So you can't compare that to other businesses because this was a measure approved by the voter based on gross receipts. So you can't compare those two.
Okay.
And if I may add to that, Mayor Pro Tem, is that all the other businesses in the city are subject to the state sales and use tax.
Right.
A city cannot impose a sales and use tax on an individual category of businesses or an individual business. The only thing that a city can do is do a gross receipts tax, which is why every one of the taxes that you saw on the chart is a gross receipts tax. And no city allows deduction for the cost of doing goods or labor.
Okay, and that's mandated from the state. Where's that?
No, going back a bit, when Paris adopted and put a ballot measure on, a measure on the ballot for the voters to vote on, we were kind of ahead of the game, as one of the people said.
Right.
And so you can only do a gross receipts tax. So the measure in the ordinance defined gross receipts to include everything we could think of, because nobody knew what was going to happen with the state ballot and the state law. And so it allowed the council to change those things, which the council did by deleting the excise tax and the state sales tax. But it doesn't. It's not mandated by the state. that is defined by the city.
Okay, so the city put that in. So would that have to go back to the voters for that portion of it?
No, the ballot measure said up to 10% of gross receipts.
Right.
And what we did, because we were, no one knew what the rules were going to be, so we threw everything into that gross receipts definition, and then gave the council the ability, the voters gave the council the ability to work within that, as long as it doesn't go over 10%. So as long as it doesn't exceed 10%, the council is free to make changes as you see fit.
Okay. So theoretically, we could eliminate the labor, or give or approve the labor deduction.
You could, I suppose. I mean, I would defer.
But it wouldn't be following the gross.
No, you could, but this is probably, I don't want to put Mr. Reyna on the spot, but I see personally, if you allow them to deduct the cost of labor and the materials, who's going to audit that? It is a nightmare in the making, in my opinion. There's no way that you're going to be able to identify. You're going to have to trust whatever they put on their papers. Not saying anything bad against the people in here. So if you were going to deduct it, then I would equate that to a percentage and just do the percentage reduction.
Right, and we'd have to take that for face value. So whatever they turn into us, we'd have to take and say, this is what we're going to accept. And the only way that would be followed up on is in the audit in the prior year or 2 years following that. That's the only way it can be verified. So you have an issue of, is that amount correct? And we have to accept it as being correct and go forward with that, whether or not it is. And I'm not saying that they're going to make a mistake, but there could be. And we have to accept that as being that number is being accurate and true, if that makes sense.
And if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy City Manager, the deductions, including wages and inventory, equate to about 66% of gross receipts. And I believe the deduction for wages is about 11%, and the inventory is 55%.
Right, that's how we broke it
So,
up.
so therefore, you're looking at 11% deduction if you, just based on a typical monthly.
For the
labor
wages,
deduction. Right,
okay.
labor.
Industry standard,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, and like you mentioned, those are two numbers that you can break out and you can identify that way. But when we get those numbers, the sheet that we get now, we take the excise and sales and use tax amount as being that's correct. And so we really can't audit or do anything with those. So now if you have those two numbers coming in, you have a percentage that's 55% that we really can't say no to. It's like, okay, this is what it is. We can't verify that. We're going to hope that in the back end that HDL will come back and audit that and say, yeah, that is correct. Or, you know what, you made an error here, and so that's going to be correct. And that could create some audit issues down the line as well, because if it wasn't deducted properly, it could open up some other issues as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, I kind of bring that up because as a city, I feel like we care about the working members of our community, and to not allow them to deduct that, and then possibly, if they're able to deduct that, possibly are we able to mandate that they provide certain benefits, or is that out of our
You mean benefits to their employees?
to their employees?
I have not considered that.
Yeah, I've never seen that either. I don't know. I couldn't answer
But the
that.
applicant's request under the first one is either a reduction in the sales tax or
Sorry, say again?
we're talking about now,
Per-
the
per the-
reduction of salaries and.
Yeah, so it was either a reduction down to a flat
Or the
percentage,
other.
like a 5 or a 4%, or a allowance to allow for the inventory and payroll to be deducted from the gross receipts.
Okay.
Those are the two
Real
options.
So you can't mix them. You can't.
It was
mix
either,
and match.
it was or. So they give them a flat percentage of 5% or 4%, whatever you decided on, or it was the deduction for the allowance of those two other ones.
they're
the
not all
inventory.
together.
Oh,
They're not all
okay.
together. Right.
Okay, so
and
we can't leave it at the highest tax rate, but allow for a deduction of labor, but leave everything the same.
Right.
That's not
Right.
Can allow for the deduction, but I think what we're suggesting as staff is that
It's gonna be a mess.
It'll be very difficult to audit, and maybe the costs for HDL are going to go up because they have
Right.
to audit. So if you do want to make a change, we suggest just taking the equivalent and lowering the tax rate to whatever the equivalent is.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say
Okay.
the applicant is suggesting that too, to make it simpler for the city to review. So
right. But now I'm kind of concerned about that. If we don't deduct the labor, and that if we do deduct it, say at 5%, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say if it goes down to 5%, 2 years from now they're going to say, hey, you're still charging us. We're still being taxed for for labor. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm not sure if that should be the case.
Well, anything can happen. I mean, but
Yeah.
they're on paper. That's the request.
Okay.
Either give us these deductions, or my city manager frantically wants to make a comment. So
Oh, yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
If I may, at the Ways and Means Committee, there was discussion at the time the applicant had requested either or. After discussions with staff, because, as City Attorney Dunn mentioned, the deduction gets very dicey in the sense of the auditing amount increases. It's all based on what the applicant provides, so it gets a little bit more technical, which is now where the applicant is now proposing the deduction would be equivalent to a 4% tax rate rather than doing a deduction, which is what the applicant is requesting tonight.
Right.
So I believe that's the request tonight, the 4%, which is equivalent if you were to deduct wages and inventory.
Right.
Now, we can talk about if we did.
That's the ask, but that's up to the council to decide what percentage
Right.
they want to get to,
No.
if they want to lower it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Who's that?
Over here.
Yes.
It's me, sorry. So one of the other things too, with the flat percentage versus the deduction of the inventory and the cost of goods sold, it's a lot easier just to take that and calculate that number. You're going to run into major issues with, auditing purposes if you have just a number that's a variable. I call it a variable when it comes to the cost of goods sold and inventory. We just don't know what that is, and it's hard to determine that number. It's a lot easier to apply a flat percentage and say, this is what's going to be. For example, even if we would just allow the payroll 11% and just that number, the effective tax rate at that would be about 9%, 8.9, 9%. You could do just that. You can mix and match them. You can say this is what it's going to be. But I think the bottom line is the flat percentage would be the easiest way to go if you're going to reduce anything at all.
Right. No, I do agree it would be easier, but I'm just thinking about what's right. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with everything that Mr. Nagar stated.
Right.
But there were some things in there that why are
course.
we treating different industries differently?
Right. And so
so for example, the local liquor stores, we don't seem to treat them that way.
Sure.
Same
No,
thing with the people that sell guns.
I get it.
I mean, we don't
So,
treat them differently.
To their point, I think what they're saying is that if you were to take that inventory and payroll, an equivalent rate would be about 3.5 to 4%. So you can actually quantify that and say, you know what, we'll take it down to 4%, and that's the same as giving them the inventory and payroll as well. So
Okay.
that would be.
And 2-3 years later, they're not going to come back and say, "Hey, you're still taxing us on the labor." So that's kind of where.
Okay, they could very well be, yes. And again, this went to the ballot, this went to the vote of the people, so this is why this use is taxed differently. It was something that went to the voters, it's not.
Now, another question I had. I know it was stated that Mr. Nagar represents the dispensaries. Does he represent all of them, or a few of them?
I'll ask, we can ask Mr. Joshua Nagar to come up and identify the different dispensaries he represents.
Okay. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to come and tell us which dispensaries you represent.
You don't have to tell us which one. Just tell us how many you represent.
Oh, about 3 of them. I don't represent all of them.
All of them. Okay. So 3 of them. Okay.
I'm sure most of them would agree taxes should be lowered, though.
Okay. But we can't speak on behalf of everybody, right? Have we reached out to the other ones? No? So it's just for these 3 are requesting it, but this would all apply to all of them. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Rabb, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, I had a question. If we were to move forward with an ordinance decreasing the sales tax amount, when will we start seeing the decrease or diminution of sales tax receipts? Would that be around July, August?
So it would depend, and I think you mean the gross receipts tax, right? That portion?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
so it depends on when it's enacted. So as soon as it is enacted, if it goes forward, then we would see an immediate reduction right away on that.
And we're approximately halfway, a little under halfway through our budget cycle, right?
Yeah, correct, right. About three quarters, yeah.
About 3/4. And our budget was prefaced on moving forward with the 10% gross receipts.
Yeah, the budget was about 4.5 to 5 million, I believe. I think it was 4.5 million is what we budgeted in revenues.
Okay. My concern is if we were to lower it, we could see a revenue shortfall in the long term at this point. And I think now with the inflation happening and all the other things happening in the economy and potential of a recession, we may be setting the city up for financial ruin. I understand the concerns. I would say, however, cannabis is different. It's still illegal on the federal level, and the voters approved the gross receipts tax. I understand the wanting to go forward with the deductions, but I just think it would be hard for us to itemize or audit those deductions. I think I think staying at the 10% is probably prudent at the time, but I think we should revisit this maybe around this time next year. I think the reduction of current penalties and fees, I think that's something we should have a discussion on. I do think that, there could be an accounting issue that could negatively impact the business, but at the same time, we want to make sure that it is high enough so that the people know that they need to pay their taxes that are due to us. And the last item, I think we all agree upon that, streamlining the application process. So at this time, I don't think it's smart to move forward, or it's prudent to move forward with reducing the sales tax. I know some of the other cities, I saw San Bernardino, I was just kind of concerned that they're only at 4%. I think that was way too low for them. But I think at the time being, we were the early adapter for this. I think we kind of want to see what's happening with the other areas. But I'd like to thank the people for bringing this to our attention and the members of the public for coming and speaking today.
Thank you. Do you have anything? Okay. I think the best thing to do is take one item at a time. My 2 cents is, if we were to favor anything, I would rather do the flat percentage as opposed to going into all this auditing business. It's a mess as it is to begin with. But I have to always stipulate this because as a retired law enforcement officer, I do not support this at all. I did not vote for it. I was a voter that said no on prop. But it is considered a business, and because the voters did vote and approved it, I do have to support certain items. So what I want to do is just one line item at a time. So we're dealing with the potential reduction in the dispensary tax rate. Does anybody have any recommendations, any comments, any motions on that?
Yes, I do have comments. I know that the voters did vote for, to vote up to 10%, and it seems like we did it, and then we reduced it by getting rid of the excise tax. I do feel that we do treat this legal industry differently, which I think is new. I know that at one time, alcohol was banned in our country too, but I know a lot of people in this room can go down to the wineries in Temecula and take some pictures freely, post them on their social media, and they won't get any flack about it. I can tell you right now, probably Friday night after a hard day of work, I'm gonna probably just grab a couple of drinks in my fridge and drink it, and I'm not gonna have anybody complain or give me anything. But if I were to take a picture smoking a joint right now, I'm gonna get some people complaining about that. Not saying I will, but I do think that we should ensure that our businesses are competitive with the surrounding areas. I know that the numbers for Paris are actually better than some of our neighboring cities already. I think with the excise tax issue, that definitely helped out. But I do want to make sure that we are competitive, the same way we want our liquor stores to be competitive, the same way we want the places selling firearms to be competitive as well too. So I do want to throw that out. To kind of see where we would be at, where they could be competitive, to we're not losing to the county now. So I mean, people could have their issues with our dispensaries here in the city of Paris, which I definitely agree. I think in the very beginning we should have been stricter with the billboards and stuff like that. But when you have the county, as some people stated, half a mile away, they're going to be doing the same thing over there. It's going to, I think we're going to be kind of losing out. Now, if those remember, before we voted to legalize this whole process, we had a lot of illegal ones in the city, right here in downtown Paris. Right here in downtown, people were selling in the corners, for years, decades. I remember as a kid, just going there and say, like, okay, if like they're going to go to those apartments to go buy some weed. And I think once it became legalized, it was a reason to kick out all those things. So I do think that that whether you agree with it or not, I think we should have them be competitive, because if they're competitive, it's going to reduce the number of illegal dispensaries in our communities as well. So I just want to throw that out for comments.
Okay, so we spent 30 minutes already talking about this. Do you have a recommendation, or do you want to make a motion?
I don't have a specific number, no, but I think we need to look at some of our surrounding cities.
Okay, that's all been
And
presented
compete.
to us already.
Okay. What's Marina Valley, for example, again? 8%?
You want to go back to that list?
Yeah, whenever we could do that.
Give me 1 second. IT.
One thing I want to throw in there, and I agree with Councilman Rab, if we do any kind of changes, it does not get implemented until the new fiscal year. We can't jeopardize the current fiscal year of what's going on now. We have a responsibility to maintain fiscal solvency with our community.
I'm going to show you a list of the higher and then lower. We can just scroll back and forth. But
On the screen there.
so Marina Valley is at 8%, and then these are the city with a lower rate here. I can switch back and forth as you feel.
Just slow down when you do it.
Okay, so this is the lower rate.
So you have go back. You have two that are at 4%, right?
Correct.
One at 6, two at 6, one at 7. Okay, now go back. You have 6 at 10%, one at 15%, one at 8%.
So for us to go to 8%, though, we're going to essentially be going, I guess, lower, right? Because we're effectively at 7.75.
Correct.
And then also going back to the question I asked Mr. Dunn already, are we able to mandate that they have certain benefits for their employees?
That would be, it's an interesting question I haven't looked into, and we'd have to look into it and come back with an answer. I mean, when you said it, I was thinking internally that maybe there's a different tax rate if they meet these requirements and if they don't meet these requirements, but I don't know if that's actually allowed. I would have to look into that.
Okay, because I think we missed early on when we started this whole journey 5 years ago. I think we missed a lot of opportunities from the get-go. You know, I mean, we were trying to be at the forefront, but here we were. You know, I mean, we were learning like everybody else. But I wish we could have done more benefits and more community benefits at the time. But yeah, those are all my comments right there. But is that something that you don't know for sure yet? Or is that something to look into?
That is the first time I've ever been asked that question, okay. So we would have to look into it if that's the council's direction. As far as mandating them to provide specific benefits to their employees.
What are you talking about? Like medical benefits?
Yeah.
I've never heard of an agency being mandatory to provide benefits.
Wait, you never done what?
I've never heard of an agency being mandated to provide benefits.
Like a government forcing a business to how to conduct their business.
I
think that's overstepping, to be honest.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're also taxing for other things that we don't.
That's taxation. It has nothing to do with benefits. That's apples and
yeah,
oranges.
that's overstepping. I feel like businesses wouldn't appreciate the overstepping
That's the case,
of government.
I'd be mandating every liquor store in Paris to provide insurance. I mean, I don't know, but that's still, we have to let the city clerk attorney look into that.
And I wanted to go ahead and add some comments, if I may.
Yes.
So this came up to us in the Ways and Means Committee meeting, and I did not feel comfortable making a recommendation then. And at this point, again, and that's why I encourage staff to go ahead and do some research and bring this up for discussion here on council. But given the way that we are dealing, post-pandemic inflation, and like any other business out there, it's been really difficult to navigate those times. And then also, like Councilmember Rab made the point that we don't know what things are going to look like a month, 2 months from now, even a year. So I don't have a strong, definite answer regarding the adjusted gross revenue, the 10%, whether it's feasible to go ahead and decrease that, given what our city, we still haven't seen, again, the pandemic play out. And then again, I have to speak on behalf of the residents. There is still, Malcolm was talking about the stigma. it's honestly, you hit it right on the mark. There is still community members out there that are not happy about the dispensaries and having them here in their community. Like Mr. Hawkes commented, there's working professionals, principals, engineers, you name it, that live here in our community. And we, for a moment in time, were known as the Green Capital. And I feel like we're much more than that, just like how I hate that the city of Paris is pigeonholed into being just one thing. We're much better than that. And that may deter potential businesses, right? Small mom and pop shops that are looking to start their business here in the city of Paris because maybe they think their business might not thrive, whatever it is. So I would like to go ahead and agree with Councilmember Rabb that maybe a year from now to consider the line item number 1, which is a reduction, because at the moment I think we would be making a decision without knowing what the future of the city would look like. So those are my thoughts on that.
Can you go back to the 3 items again? You're not there yet.
Sorry for that.
And then also to clarify, there was a comment made that there wasn't any emergency or law enforcement phone calls or services utilized. However, I know contrary, and can I have staff confirm that if due to the opening of dispensaries, has there been an increase in service calls, whether it's fire, police, or sheriff visiting dispensaries?
To our knowledge, there has 2 dispensaries that have been closed, and those did have problems with police activity. I'm not aware of the ones that are currently open, but our police chief is here.
There has been incidents. Anyway. Let me go through this so that we can catch up on that because we're not going to. I don't think we're going to settle everything here. So it's evident that we're not anywhere on the first one with the reduction on tax. The second one is potential reduction from the current penalty fees. Let's talk about that one.
So my comments are brief, if I could just interject.
Sure.
And just state my thoughts on that item. So we are competitive with other cities, and I agree with staff's recommendation to remain the same. Again, this is something that dispensaries will not have to pay if they are on time in paying. So I feel like there shouldn't be any excuses or any cop-out if you're a business. And like we said, City of Paris was one of the businesses to first give a green light to dispensaries. So at this point in time, businesses should have learned how to navigate and hold up their accounting practices. So at this point, I don't understand why we would have to have this leniency. And again, this isn't a penalty that has to be paid. This is completely avoidable if dispensaries are able to pay on time. And we just had a round of that where we went ahead and collected late payments, and we were able to see that dispensaries were able to pay up by the deadline, pay in full. So that's also taking up more of our staff time, having to have these discussions, follow up, and just make sure that dispensaries are on time where it's a business and they should be able to operate and pay all their dues on time. So those are just my thoughts. I recommend no on item number 2.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I do concur on the item number 2. I think it's completely avoidable. But I do wish our staff is working with the dispensaries as well too, because I know the last time it was based on the audit, but they weren't audited from those 3 numbers from 2-3 years ago. So but yeah, I definitely agree.
Councilwoman Rabb? Councilman Rabb?
I'd be open to looking more in depth on this, just in terms of real time. Like we would like model this out, say if they owed 25,000, maybe a month by month, kind of showing how the current rate could increase the taxes. But I agree with my colleagues regarding this creating going too lenient on the non-payment creates a lot of issues in terms of staff time. But just in order to conceptualize it again, I just need to see maybe like if they owe 25,000, how the 25 and the 10% compounded kind of works out over the course of say 2 to 3 months. And that might be asking a lot right now at this meeting, but that's where I'm at right now with the section 2.
Councilwoman Rogers?
I'm not proponent to making any changes to the penalty fees. The taxes should be paid on time, and if not, that's why the penalty is there.
Okay, well, that's majority there already. I'm not as necessarily in favor of reduction of salary, but the compounded one, I mean, that, you know, that could be extreme. So what, if we can maybe just revisit that. All right, the last one is upon renewal of this is to consolidate the applications. I'll start with Nava.
I vote yes on that.
Rab?
Yes.
Rita Rogers?
Yes, I had said I would support that.
Okay. Mary Pro Tem?
Yeah, no, for the lounge, I'm not familiar with the lounge because we don't have a lounge anywhere in
Not
our
yet.
city. Is that going to be a little bit? Is that going to be kind of different than from a dispensary, or I take it you purchase whatever you're gonna partake in there,
Yes.
and then
so-
consume it on property, right?
Yes, the premise is that you would dedicate 600 square feet aside for people to spend time, sit down in a kind of a couch setting or
Consume there.
And consume there. Yes.
Okay. So the only thing I can think about is like a bar, right? You're purchasing the alcohol there and then consuming it there.
You can't drink alcohol in.
Right.
currently-
No, but I'm thinking about like separately, right? Do we charge separately for like an alcohol license to sell alcohol and then one to consume it there? Are those two different things?
If I may, if a business is currently open and they do not have alcohol on site, they come forward to the city to apply for alcohol, yes, there is a separate application to add alcohol to the business, like a conditional use permit. So yes, unless the business at the very beginning, for example, a service station, they apply for a conditional use permit for alcohol and the gas station at the beginning. Same thing would apply here. If you come in with multiple applications at the same time, it's one review. If you bring it one at a time, so eventually they all renew at the same time.
Okay.
So it'll be one review,
But it's different fees.
It's one fee.
One fee,
But
okay.
the upfront fee for each new application would be a one-time new fee for every new application.
Okay.
And I think we've met with the applicant and discussed this, and I think we've come to some agreement where this can work for everyone, but we can talk more with the applicant.
Okay.
But I think the big ask is, can that be lumped with the three, with the other two, adult and medical
Yeah.
use?
No, I'm totally good with the medical and adult use. I get
No,
that.
but you.
But the question was a lounge.
You
Yes.
specified lounge. Can
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
be added to medical and adult use under one?
Yes, we
Even
can.
after the first time, I get that.
Yes, we can do it with the renewal at this point.
Okay,
We can do
so
that.
then the answer is yes for when they come to renewals.
Okay. Then yes, I'm good with that.
All right, and I'm a yes too, so that's good. All right, so as far as the tax rate, going back to one, I think we need to come back with this after this fiscal year is over and give it one more shot again. I would really like to hear Ways and Means come back with something. That's why we have these subcommittees, to come back and just put it on the council, on the dais is not fair. So hopefully you guys can work something out. And then the potential reduction from current penalty fees is going to remain, but let's look into the, what's that terminology? The compounded interest. Right. Everybody good with that?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right, staff, you got it? City manager? Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Nagar and your team, thanks for coming out, and we'll continuing our conversations. Okay, item 13 is, I did take care of everything, yes. Okay, item 13, council communication. We will start with Councilwoman Nava.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd like to kick off by thanking our public comment speakers and everyone who participated in today's fruitful meeting. I also would like staff to follow up with CRNR regarding the comments that were made tonight. I would like to see action, for example, if our trash pickup is running late or it's skipped for 1 week, that should be reflected on the bill. So I would hope that staff would follow up on the comments that were made today. I'd also like to take a moment to address a topic of concern here in our community, and that's regarding street vending, specifically food vending here in the city of Paris. So I have asked staff if we could go ahead and create a campaign, a workshop to go ahead and inform our residents and those interested in partaking in these types of street vending, particularly food vending. It comes with a lot of safety hazards, so I'd like our community to be more informed and learn a little bit more about that. And if in partnership we could work with environmental health and offer steps on how to apply for a business license and really offer a wholesome workshop that would be open to residents and anyone interested in participating in that. And also a great big thank you to our code enforcement and our sheriff who are doing their part in making sure that our community is keeping safe. So with that, those are all the comments that I have for tonight, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rogers?
I also would like to thank all of the speakers that came out tonight to express their opinions and give the city their input. It's definitely very valuable when we hear from our residents. I also would like to thank all of our residents that participated in the health fair this past weekend that came out and supported that. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rabb?
Yes, I'd like to thank all the speakers for coming out and giving their comments today. I'd like to especially thank Reverend Abraham Capers regarding his comment. I'd spoken with him earlier regarding the comment, and he was given a contact for CR&R, but I think they have failed to follow up on the comment. The issue that he has, and the issue some other residents in some of the areas in Paris have, is that when we went from Paris billing it as part of our water bill or part of the MWD bill to CR&R billing it separately, what CR&R did was, for instance, if you have one APN number with two residents on the number, two separate addresses, but it's the same APM, same water meter, one water meter for two residents. What CR&R did is they double billed the people. And I'm well aware of Abraham Capers' house, is that his house, it's two houses, but they're on one water meter. They've been on under one APN number. And when it went over to CR&R, rather than billing it as one APN number or one water bill, as it's been for 70 years, they split it up and they gave two separate bills for the two separate houses that have two separate addresses. So I think this is going to be an issue. It's not widespread because there's probably, I'm guessing, no more than 20 houses regarding this issue, but we definitely need to follow up with CR&R regarding this issue. And in many instances, they haven't even provided the extra trash cans that they're billing people for. So that's something to look at. And I think it's especially important since we're moving forward with ADUs. We have half addresses that are going to be coming online, people building half addresses. We just want to make sure that, if they can satisfy their trash needs with just one set of free trash cans, I don't think they should be double billed on that issue. So thank you for bringing that to the council's attention. Another issue a resident brought to my attention is that there's loud music at a restaurant over on D and 2nd on Nari, a restaurant. And I understand it's a party restaurant. A lot of people have a great time there. But I think the loud music goes not only on Friday and Saturday nights, but on Sunday nights. There are a lot of seniors in the apartment complex that's near there. And I know staff's done an excellent job citing them, but I think I'd like to see just a list of the citations we've issued, and maybe the next course of action, if they're failing to comply with those citations, maybe a legal action. I know somebody was killed there about 4 or 5 years ago. And I hate to move forward with a heavy hand on the business, but I think we can work this out amicably for all parties involved. Another thing is we can look into, there's the frontage road moving from Morgan, where the Valverde High School District is, down to our new Placentia Interchange. And there's that section from the frontage road to the chain link fence where a lot of weeds have overgrown. I'm not sure if that's the city's responsibility or it's more likely Caltrans' responsibility. If we can contact Caltrans to clean those weeds up on that area. And on that note, my last comment is you're going down 215 and there's the 215 Ramona Interchange. I know we're constantly doing work on it because the city's growing, but if we can contact Caltrans to come and do a little weed abatement, rake up all the dead grass, trim the palm trees, trim the pepper trees, something not too intensive where they're not spending a lot of money putting rocks and gravel down at this time because we're going to be doing a lot of work there. They can just spend an afternoon of coming out and cleaning that area. Like I said, the pepper trees, the palm trees, cleaning the palm fronds, I think it would be a major improvement just coming into the city on that particular area. With that, I just want to thank once again all the speakers coming in today. And thank you for your comments, and thank you for reaching out to each and every one of us. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. On this past Wednesday, I got to get a tour of the upcoming park over in Enchanted Hills area. I do want to thank staff and for everyone involved in doing such a great job. It's still not finished yet, but it's looking very, very nice, and I'm sure the residents are going to be very pleased. On last Saturday, I was reminded of my favorite event in the city of Paris. The health fair was absolutely amazing. Our staff did a phenomenal job from not doing it for the last 2 years because of COVID to bringing it back. So many vendors were out there just educating the public. The 5K, which was hosted by the Paris Union High School District, did a phenomenal job in the organization. Our staff and our law enforcement did a great job in organizing the route and keeping everybody safe. The entertainment of the event was phenomenal as well too, with all the different acts, and the band was awesome. I think they're called the Sidekicks. Were great. I know the mayor and I gave out a lot of bikes, worked together with staff and everything. So I definitely want to give a big thank you to our staff from all the departments that were involved for doing a phenomenal job on that event. And lastly, I want to wish my mother and my wife and our city manager and our city clerk and Councilwoman Rogers a very happy upcoming Mother's Day. And to all the mothers in the city of Paris, I hope you enjoy your day.
Nice scoring points. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm not going to repeat what's been said already. I just attended this Monday night at Avelina Homeowners Association. That's the homes across the street from, the Pulte homes across the street from Orange Vista High School. They do have a lot of concerns. Staff has been addressing with them, and I'm also going to be doing a return visit with hopefully some staff members and an inspector to finalize some other issues that we can give back to our city manager and city engineer. Senior Spring Luncheon, we always do things for our seniors, and I'm a senior too, technically, but thank you. Yeah. Thanks, staff, for they put on some tremendous programs for our seniors, and we get so many people, and we always sell out, and it's just phenomenal what we do for our seniors, so thank you. And just a reminder, the big shout out that Pastor took advantage of that time there. I appreciate that. May 1st is the First Congregational Church 135th anniversary. That the worship starts at 10 a.m., followed by food and fun. So some really interesting story behind that church on how they became and where they're at today. So Councilman Rabb, I do sit on a coalition of mayors in our region here, 215, and whereabouts did you say regarding the weed abatement?
Yes, so there's two sections. The first is the 215, just the interchange, they have pocket area between the freeway and the exit. And then another area is the frontage road narrows down right where the Val Verde High School District is. And it's about 4 or 5 feet from the frontage road to the chain link fence to the 215. And there's weeds in that area down to where the new Placentia interchange is going.
Okay, the 215 interchange to what? The interchange to what?
Well, when you get on the interchange or you get off on the Ramona Expressway.
Oh, Ramona Expressway.
Yeah, so that little pocket, there's trees right there. They just can go there, abate the weeds, rake up all the dead grass.
Okay.
Trim the pom-poms. And
So the coalition of mayors, we sent a joint letter that all the mayors signed complaining to Caltrans about that very same topic, along with the debris that's going on. And I have been noticing teams out there. They also have the court order type workers that
CSW,
community service workers via the court system. So they are starting to work on it, but I will still let staff follow up, just to reiterate. But I just want to let you know that all the mayors together are very frustrated. We signed the letter because, yes, all our freeway interchanges in this region they look horrible. And as you and the rest of us on this council, we get blamed a lot about that for parts of our city when it's not under our control, but we can surely address it, and it's being done. But thank you for bringing that up. That being said, I'll end my conversations now, and I will refer to our city manager for her comments.
Thank you, Mayor. The city's Youth Advisory Committee will be hosting a park cleanup at the new and under construction Enchanted Hills Community Park this Saturday, April 30th. Check-in begins at 7:30 a.m. and the cleanup begins at 8 a.m. You can contact Community Services or visit our website for more information. Next, I'd like to congratulate Director Fung and his planning staff for having been awarded the Excellence Award in Comprehensive Planning from the Inland Empire American Planning Association for the Green Valley Specific Plan.
Nice.
So congratulations. And lastly, as you know, Lieutenant Portillo has moved on to new duties. I'd like to introduce our police chief, Captain Sims, to introduce our new lieutenant.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before I introduce the new lieutenant, I'd like to give you an update on ShotSpotter. So it's moving along really well. We should be up and running by the end of the month. So they moved really quick on that. So we'll be up and running long before 4th of July rolls around. So we have the training the week of the 16th. So we should have everybody trained up by then. And as far as the new lieutenant, I hope this is the last one of these we do for a while. I think we didn't expect Reyes moving out of here so quickly, but this is Lieutenant Wade Linton. He's been on the department for 26 years. He's worked various assignments to include the Indio Jail, Palm Desert Station, Hemet Station, San Jacinto, Moreno Valley, and Internal Affairs. Everybody loves him for that one. Prior to being promoted to lieutenant, he was a sergeant with both Professional Standards Bureau and Hemet and San Jacinto stations. And currently, he's got a son in the U.S. Navy and also one in our basic academy. So,
Nice.
I'll turn this over to Lieutenant Linton. Go ahead, man.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming me here. I'm happy to be here. It was one of the few stations I haven't worked at yet in my career, so I was excited. There's a couple of stations that I worked at, and I'm done with those, so I'm happy to be here in Paris.
Great. We're going to give you some good experience here.
And I heard I'm getting transferred next week, so.
Well, welcome aboard, Lieutenant.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
So the lieutenant, for our public, also he's technically serves as our assistant chief to our chief. So this is our chief and our assistant chief. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Is that it?
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to our adjournment, item 15. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Please be safe. We'll see you at our next meeting. And Dodgers are tied 3-3 on the bottom of the 6th. Good night.